As Donald Trump suffers failure after failure and we see scandal after scandal, his relationship with the press, if you can even call it a relationship, continues to deteriorate. We saw yesterday Donald Trump announce that MSNBC and CNN should be illegal. And recently, he has gotten even angrier and even more direct in his threats with reporters. And the latest example comes after he was caught in, again, yet another scandal, this time over his negotiations with Putin for a ceasefire in Ukraine. It was a very angry Donald Trump after the report of him being humiliated, and we are going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into the story, of course, we need a bit of context on those negotiations with a clip from an interview with Senator Mark Kelly.
It was heartbreaking. It is horrendous. It'll never be forgiven. Those soldiers were sent there by Vladimir Putin to destroy this country. Putin is an existential threat to Ukraine, to Europe, ultimately to us. Those women come to work every single day and try to take care of these veterans. It was one of the saddest things I've seen since I've been in this job. And just to think right now where we are, they're going into this negotiation in Saudi Arabia. I hope it goes well. Nobody wants this to end, as much as the Ukrainian people. But Rachel, this has to end in a way where Ukraine has dignity and has their territory back, in a way where they're stronger. And what Donald Trump has done, I mean, he has really set up these negotiations in a way that not only make us look weak, but they put Ukraine in a really horrible position.
In terms of these negotiations, such as they are, that are happening, in terms of the posture of the U.S. towards this conflict, it appears to me from the outside, just as a citizen looking at this, that nothing has been asked of Russia, and that, to the contrary, everything that Russia might conceivably have asked of the United States, short of U.S. troops bombing Ukraine itself, has been offered to Russia without concession by this president. I don't know why Marco Rubio personally feels like the right vessel for that, given his previous clear-eyed warnings about and criticism about Vladimir Putin. Do you feel like there's anything the United States could do, if it had its wits about it, to try to change some of the way that Trump is interacting already with Russia and Ukraine in a way to make it more likely that Ukraine loses this war?
Well, I could tell you what we shouldn't have done. Right at the beginning here of this negotiation, Donald Trump decides to give up Ukrainian territory, say that's not an option, they're not going to get everything back, and to say they'll never be a member of NATO. That's not the way you go into a negotiation. And Secretary Rubio said something similar here on his way to Saudi Arabia. You always want to negotiate from a position of strength. They're not doing that. You're right, they have not asked anything of the Russians. And Putin is a criminal. He respects, if anything, he respects strength. But keep in mind, Rachel, he wants to undermine Western civilization. He wants to undermine our country, our democracy. He wants to take back territory. He's talked about that. He wants Ukraine back. Then he's going to go to the Baltics. He's going to go to Poland. And then we have to come to their defense. What I'm trying to do here is making the American people aware that what this administration is doing right now, they are making serious mistakes. We've got to go into a negotiation strong. Donald Trump thinks, he looks, strong, but he's really being a bully. And he's, at least for the Russians, he's making us look weak.
It is hard to even call what Donald Trump is doing negotiating at this point, given what Mark Kelly said to start that clip, that he's really just ceded any ground. He continues to repeat this point that Zelensky doesn't have any cards. He's said it about the European Union, that they don't have any cards. He continues to repeat this phrase, not realizing, as the master negotiator he claims to be, that if you announce that someone doesn't have any leverage, it hurts their leverage, which either means that Donald Trump is a terrible negotiator, which would make a lot of sense, or he's actively working to hurt Ukraine, which is the actual truth of the situation. His words matter. He doesn't really seem to realize it all that often, unless he is using them to directly attack and threaten the press, which is exactly what he did, as we can see in this story right here. They are sick degenerates. Trump flips out over fake news over story that Putin kept his envoy waiting for 9 hours. They made up that story. Donald Trump raged at the fake news on Saturday, calling the media sick degenerates and furiously denying a Sky News report that his special envoy was kept waiting for over 8 hours by Russian President Vladimir Putin this week in a classic power play. Steve Witkoff is Donald Trump's special envoy to the Middle East and was in Russia this week, essentially as an envoy to Putin's government over the war with Ukraine. Witkoff departed Moscow on Friday with no deal on the ceasefire Ukraine has agreed to. However, Trump posted to Truth Social on Friday that there has been very good and productive discussions with Putin, saying there's a very good chance that this horrible bloody war can finally come to an end. However, some outlets reported via Sky News that Putin kept Witkoff waiting before the meeting with him on Thursday. After arriving around lunchtime on Thursday, he was left twiddling his thumbs for at least 8 hours before being called into the Kremlin, the Sky News article claimed, saying it felt like a classic Putin power play. On Saturday, Trump blew up over the reports, starting off by writing, "The fake news, as usual, is at it again." Trump disputed the report, saying, in fact, there was no wait whatsoever, and that there was no 9-hour wait or any wait at all. The only reason they made up this story is try to demean because they are sick degenerates that have to start reporting the news correctly. Trump wrote, "This is why they have lost their ratings, their audience, and respect." With the full post reading, "The fake news, as usual, is at it again. Why can't they be honest just for once? Last night I read that the President Vladimir Putin of Russia kept my highly respected ambassador and special envoy Steve Witkoff waiting for over 9 hours, when in fact there was no wait whatsoever. Other meetings with other representatives of Russia did take place, and obviously they took some time, but they were very productive. From there, things went quickly and efficiently, and all signs seemed to be hopeful. Very good. In conclusion, there was no 9-hour wait or any wait at all. The only reason they made up this story is to try to demean because they are sick degenerates that have to start reporting the news correctly. This is why they have lost the ratings, audience, and respect. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and God bless America." So, can we first talk about, before we even get into the substance of how Donald Trump's special envoy probably did have to wait for hours and probably was embarrassed, how much Trump cares that it's known how much respect he has for Putin and how well things are going, yet he blew up at Zelensky and demanded he wear a suit when his country is at war. Can we just see the disparity or just the difference in those responses? It's just crazy how much he is clearly sucking up to this guy. And it's what I continue to say on the point that Donald Trump repeats, Zelensky has no cards, Ukraine has no cards, as a way to diminish their negotiating position. And he keeps saying it because he wants Ukraine to come to the table. Yeah, I think Zelensky also wants the war to end, but he wants to end it on the correct terms, which is what Donald Trump is trying to screw over. And it's not just him, it is his MAGA Republicans in Congress, who Jasmine Crockett called out right here.
But when it comes into actually doing something that looks like preserving that oath or looks like preserving the Constitution, we get a little wobbly, and I'm not really understanding what's going on. Freedom of press doesn't look like kicking out the Washington Post, or actually the Huffington Post has been kicked out. We know that the Associated Press has been kicked out, and now the Washington Post is not going to allow for op-eds in any way if for some reason they criticize the sitting president of the United States. What this is starting to feel like is a smaller version of Russia. And I am trying to tell you that we are nothing like Russia. We are not supposed to be like Russia. But that is what we've got going on. And I'm sorry, I know that some of my colleagues still struggle with answering the question of who won the election in 2020. And you may have felt a way when you had social media checking people and saying, no, Trump did not win the election in 2020. That is absolutely factual. And unfortunately, because some people got all riled up because they believed the lies, they ended up getting locked up because they decided that they were going to believe the lies. They ended up at the Capitol on January 6th, and they were trying to tear this thing apart because they felt like their country was falling apart in front of their eyes because for whatever reason, There were people in power that were peddling a lie about the election. We also know, and some of y'all may still say that COVID was a hoax. COVID wasn't a hoax. Tell that to the over 1 million people that died under Donald Trump's first watch. It wasn't a hoax. So no, I do believe that it was okay. In fact, I do believe that it was ethically right for social media to check people, because you had people that didn't know anything about science and decided that they were going to put out whatever lies or propaganda or conspiracy theories they wanted to, and people died. At some point in time, we have to evaluate what is factual. And I know that facts hurt y'all, and I just wish we could get on the same page, but we do know during the presidential election that the president would not go and participate in anything if fact-checking was going to be a part of it, because he didn't want to be fact-checked. We know that the vice president got upset in his vice presidential debate when he was fact-checked. It used to be a time in this country that we as members of Congress or elected officials thought that it was okay to just tell the truth. Instead, we're pushing conspiracy theories, and some of them are killing people. It's the same thing that we have coming out of Doge. It's the reason that people are dying. It's the reason that farmers are losing their farms, because we continue to peddle conspiracy theories. It is time for us to say, Mr. President, guess what? Russia invaded Ukraine. Can we at least agree on that one? Facts matter. Y'all, this is literally potentially putting us into an international crisis. We may be heading towards the next world war because we have a president that wants to pal around with Putin and wants to do everything to make him feel good, including lying about who invaded who. Mr. Chair, I got a minute left, but I really want to yield to any of my colleagues and ask them if they will say today, very basically, that when it came down to the war in Ukraine, that it was not Ukraine that invaded Russia, it was the other way around. Is there anybody in here that has enough courage to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?
You can have my time.
And this is yet the problem.
These people are spineless, and they are cowardly, and their silence is incredibly loud. History will not be kind to these MAGA Republicans, and neither should we. Hold them accountable today, tomorrow. We should hold them accountable yesterday and the days and weeks before, which is what we're going to continue to do on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.